7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
This is KBCC 89.5 FM, Tracy, California, Peace and Justice Network of San Joaquin.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS The Voice of Stockton or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
City of Stockton. I am hoping that everyone had a beautiful Mother's Day weekend, and thank you for tuning in to Live with Kimberly show on the Voice of San Joaquin. I am your host, Miss Kimberly Warmsley, and I'm coming to you live this morning, and the topic of the day is going to be surviving lupus and at the same time maintaining a successful parenthood. My name is Kimberly Warmsley. I'm a clinical therapist here in San Joaquin County, and I'm working to bring awareness on real life situations, real life topics with a real life perspective and solution. To the right of me, I have the lovely Miss Frankie Quarles. She is an advocate here in San Joaquin County, and she is a parent, and she is also a survivor of lupus. Alongside Frankie, I have Miss Juanita, and excuse my Espanol because it is not good, but I'm going to try. Quinonez. Oh, I was close. She is also a parent and survivor of lupus, and we are here today to talk about the effects of lupus and at the same time how to survive and thrive as a parent. As many people know, it is hard being a parent, just period, point blank. But when you throw in the equation of having an illness that impacts your day-to-day functionality, that can make it a little bit difficult. So today we're going to talk about the effects of lupus, surviving the disease, and also being a successful parent at the same time. So wanting to just, of course, start the show with some basic information about lupus. So I'm going to give you guys just a clinical definition of what it is. So lupus is an autoimmune disease that can damage any of the major organs within your body. There are different types of lupus, and when someone is diagnosed with lupus, sometimes it's a little more easier to get ill versus someone who does not have lupus, because of the your autoimmune system is a little more weaker than that of someone who is not diagnosed. And because of that, some of your major organs can be targeted and have some struggles with functioning effectively. Like I said, there are many types of lupuses that you can be diagnosed with, but the most common diagnosis for lupus is SLE, which stands for, again, ladies?
Symptomatic, oh my God, Frankie, I can't remember.
Systematic lupus.
I can't pronounce
it. So we're not, hey, I'm a clinician, I'm not a doctor.
I'm drawing a blank.
It's a very difficult term to say at the end. And so with that being said, let's talk about the diagnosis a little bit, ladies. So starting with Frankie and then with Juanita, what has been your experience as someone who is or has been diagnosed with lupus?
Well, it was really difficult. When I was first diagnosed, I was a teenager, 16, so that's like your prime, I think, when you're becoming a woman, and a lot of things had changed for me. I was always in pain. And with systematic lupus, as the years developed, as the years grew, and I developed kidney issues. And when my kidney issues started, that's when they said that I couldn't, I started doing chemotherapy, and I was told I couldn't have kids. So to be a parent now, it's a blessing.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
Huge blessing, because I didn't think that I would have been a mom. And I love being a mom to my little boy, so it's, I'm blessed.
Right. And Juanita, what has been your experience with the diagnosis? And if you can bring your mic up, please.
So my experience is my children were in their young teenage years, and when I was first diagnosed, it was in 2010. And unfortunately, I have 4 children that had different needs in different stages of their life. I could not attend my children's sports or extracurricular activities or any type of functions that they would partake in school, because I would just be in so much pain. And when it came time for my oldest children to go to college, I could not be with them on their first day of college. It had to be another family member. I was not well enough to travel, and it was very disheartening for my children to enter stages of their life that needed the support of a parent by their side, and I was just unable to accommodate them. And I could not also tell them that while they were in college, I was in the hospital for 3 months, and I couldn't allow them to know how severe it was, how really bad it was, because I did not want to affect their studies. And the younger ones struggled because they saw me healthy on the outside, but didn't understand what was going on, and very limited resources for them. And to explain to somebody that, you can't wash the dishes, you can't make your bed, you just can't get up out of bed when you look completely healthy, it becomes very disheartening, and you lose your independence as a person, and much more as a parent, because you're there to take care of them, and all of a sudden it shifted. They had to take care of you.
So, just to reiterate what Juanita was just speaking upon, because lupus is a illness that affects your autoimmune system, some of the symptoms that you may have as a result of that could be fatigue, or feeling fatigue or feeling nauseous, struggling with the ability and or strength to get out of bed. And so those are some of the things that could impair a person's ability to thrive as a parent. And I think that, as Juanita has described, children having to learn why their parents are struggling with, just maybe even getting up to give them a bowl of cereal can be difficult.
Very, very difficult.
Very difficult. And luckily, when you were diagnosed, your kids were at a stage, a developmental stage,
Correct.
where they could step up.
Right.
To filling in where you were not able
Correct.
to fill in.
Yeah. Versus a young mother.
Yeah.
Right.
With me, it's my baby. I talk about it all the time. I don't want him to resent me for if he thinks I'm lazy or I don't want to do anything. Mm-hmm. So I talk to him. I say, Malcolm, Mom has lupus. And he says, Mom has lupus. Mommy don't feel well. He knows. Wow. He knows to massage my back. It's like I talk to him so he understands that when Mommy don't feel good, I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that, because he tried to touch me and it's uncomfortable. Right. And I'm just not in the mood. So I just teach him now, just understand that I don't feel well, but I love you, but just give me some time and we'll work through it.
And I think that the last show that you and I had, Frankie, we talked about the importance of educating people about this illness. I think that. So I'm just going to reframe something, because I thought it was very powerful. And I do want to reiterate this and bring this up to the viewers. There are 1.5 million Americans who are currently diagnosed with lupus. And this is coming off of the Women's Institute of Illness. So they basically keep the statistics of the figures. And so I say statistics with a grain of salt, because in order to be diagnosed with lupus, you actually have to go to the doctor. And we know that there are some people who are struggling with the inability to even maintain
That is correct.
health insurance.
Correct.
And so this diagnosis, to me, when I read diagnoses about illnesses and those who are diagnosed, I always keep that in back of my mind, is how many people actually have insurance now to even be diagnosed.
Correct.
Some other staggering figures is that out of the 70% of that 1.5 million, most commonly is the SEL, which is a diagnosis. SLE. SEL?
SLE.
What is it?
SLE.
SLE. So this is what Juanita and Frankie is diagnosed with, or have been diagnosed with.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, 90% of that 1.5 million Americans are women, and between the ages of 15 to 45, those women are commonly diagnosed with lupus, and it is commonly diagnosed when you are pregnant, and probably because when you are pregnant you go through so many different testings with blood and
the stress.
And the stress. So that also induces the symptoms of lupus. Another staggering statistic, 1 in 537 of those women are African American. So persons of color are more commonly diagnosed than anyone or any other woman in that statistic. So very powerful, very staggering when you talk about the statistics of women who are facing and or diagnosed with women, or with that lupus, I'm sorry. So with that being said, we're talking about the parenting elements, right? So either one of you can answer this question. Let's talk about the resources that are out there that are available for women who are diagnosed with lupus. What, in your experience, what have you seen in terms of resources, community-based agencies that are out there to support survivors of lupus or people who are diagnosed with lupus?
Well, I haven't found any, but their foundation, Alpha Lupus, they're really hands-on with lupus patients that can't do certain things. So this question is more for you, Juanita.
Right. So when I first was diagnosed, there was only one foundation in California that offered, some type of information, but that's all it was. It was just, this is lupus, and here's a piece of pamphlet, and best of luck to you. It's not. That's what they were founded on, and that's their program, and that's fine, because some people just don't even have anything other than Google, to look up, or WebMD to look up information. But my children were young, and my other children were older, and they were looking for some type of resource, any type, and they could not find anything. And I don't know where she looked for when they first got diagnosed. If her mother, she probably looked everywhere. And that is why our foundation was started, to be able to be more hands-on. So if somebody like Frankie gives us a call, we give her a lot of information, and we set the tone so that she doesn't feel alone, that she understands that we understand what she's going through, because it is founded by a person with lupus who has been in a very hard, difficult situation where she herself has found herself in. So it's not like a stranger who's never had lupus giving advice on somebody for lupus. It's somebody who has lupus who can walk her through the process of it. And when she says she's hurting, I know exactly what type of pain she's feeling. When she says, I can't lift my arm, I know exactly why she can't lift her arm. And when she says, my kidney hurts, it's not like a bladder infection type of, or a kidney infection. It is full throttle, you feel like you're dying kind of pain. And only people with lupus understand that kind of pain. It doesn't mean that people that do not have lupus cannot have compassion or or lack of understanding. It's just the physical connection that her and I and many other patients out there can relate to, and it's easier to have comfort from someone who's been through or is going through the process. And that's what the Alpha Lupus Foundation does. It offers hands-on, real-life problems, real-life issues help. So it's very resourceful, because sometimes people need more than a pamphlet. They need somebody to listen to and understand them, have the same compassion that they need and are seeking for at that moment, even if it's for a 5-minute conversation or a 5-hour conversation. They need to vent with somebody who really understands what we're going through.
Yeah. And I think that is, for me, that's a deep concern, that in California, where we are we're amongst the third wealthiest state, not in the United States, but in the country. And the thought that there are not enough services to provide persons who are diagnosed with lupus the affordability of having persons who you can become more educated. Like a pamphlet only can go so far.
Correct.
Yes.
A pamphlet can take you for,
And when
to
we
a
get that
limited-
pamphlet, we don't even have the strength. I personally did not have the strength to pick it up, nor the patience to read it,
Right.
because we were in so much pain. I was in so much pain.
Yeah, and when you said I wasn't looking for a foundation, I didn't know what I wanted, but my support came from my family, like my in-home house, and like my mom, she's my voice, so she does all the footwork, and she found Juanita. I was just probably at home sick. I couldn't do that, but a lot of people don't have the support for at home to get you through that. So I've been blessed with my mom, but she's my voice.
Right.
I didn't know, honestly. When someone told me I have lupus, it didn't register to me that
Correct.
I had lupus. I didn't know. All I thought is I'm dying.
Yeah.
And I was depressed for so long, and literally I didn't know if I wanted to. My mom just kept saying, let's go to these meetings, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Right.
I don't know. But she was my voice. She does everything for me. So that's why I never looked for a foundation. I didn't know what to look for, but my foundation was literally at home.
Yeah.
So, you brought up a good point. Just because that's my expertise with the mental health and the clinical element. When you were diagnosed, did anyone offer, either one of you guys, services,
No.
counseling,
No.
family support?
No.
Wow.
I just literally got I got a bunch of paperwork, and it just told me what lupus was.
I didn't even
That's
get that.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
We have to do better. We are missing the mark so bad. This is so disturbing to me. And, to not only just to throw in the medical element, and like Frankie said, with children who are diagnosed, or young people who are diagnosed, like giving a diagnosis and a bunch of paperwork in a moment of you getting a diagnosis and not even saying, well, this is what that means, and this is the trajectory or the expectation. These are signs, these are symptoms that you may or may not have. To not have that education is just beyond disturbing to me.
And what is really disturbing, and I know she went through it and I went through it, the way we were diagnosed, we were shutting down. Our body was checking out. And it took that type of momentum for us to understand that there's something seriously wrong. If we would have had preventative care, if we would have, really even ourselves voiced that we're feeling bad, and we would have given doctors an opportunity for us to be seen and for them to see us and for us to express what we're feeling, maybe we would have had a better chance of not to have ended up where we did. But we ourselves have to take accountability that we would not gravitate to the seriousness of what we were feeling, because she's young. She did not want to miss out on life, and I was too independent, and I did not want to miss out on my business opportunities. And I just put life first before our bodies, and they were screaming. that there was something wrong,
Yeah.
and we didn't listen.
Right. And I think that goes back to, I always talk about how, you know, having the skill set to advocate, having the support persons to help you advocate, having the willpower and that leverage through your children, Juanita, gave you the strength to say, okay, this is what I have and this is what I need to do to progress. What about the people who don't have those supports? What about the people who don't have the advocates in their corner, or even the willpower or drive to even seek those persons out? Because having, like Frankie said, when you get diagnosed, you're not knowing, you know, what that means. And so sometimes people can give up on life. Sometimes people can say, forget it, I'm out and I don't even want to try.
It is very easy
And
to
I
do that.
honestly think would be great if hospitals and doctors, the foundation, certain foundations clicked up. Because if I got diagnosed and they said, oh, Frankie, we can send you to the Alpha Lupus Foundation and they're hands on and you can talk to someone with lupus, and literally her story is so similar to mine. We were going through the same thing, because before I got I was feeling this pain. I'm going to the doctor and they're saying nothing's wrong with you, and I'm like, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I just feel like sometimes it's hard because it's hard to get diagnosed. But I think if hospitals linked up with foundations, it would be someone would be willing to talk. Because I know if I didn't want to talk when I got diagnosed, but I want to talk to somebody that had lupus, but I didn't know no one who had lupus.
Right.
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, and the issue with me was my aunt had lupus. This is my own ignorance, and lupus deceives doctors oneself. But my aunt had lupus, pregnancy-related lupus, and all she had was a little butterfly rash on her face, but she seemed normal to everybody. But when they told me I had lupus, I was like, whatever, okay, no big deal. Mind you, I was already shutting down. My body was it was a bad situation for me right there and then. But then they said, you have diabetes. We have chemically induced diabetes. When I heard the word diabetes, I was devastated. I started crying like a child, saying, oh my God, diabetes. My grandfather died because of this, you know. And because there's so much information about diabetes, of the pros and the cons, and how you can treat and monitor and live, you know, healthy lifestyle even with diabetes.
Right.
But there was nothing on lupus. So I didn't even consider lupus a threat.
Well, and for me, I just for someone, you know, I've worked in hospitals. I still work in a hospital. I still work with patients. I think that there's a trauma element to it, right? Because instantly we are like prone, because we're humans. We're all humans. We all have feelings and emotions. We're we are all susceptible to, you know, thinking the worst. So like you said, diabetes, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. You know, this changes my whole element of how I eat, how I'm going to look. Lupus, you know, I may look like this, or people may see me as that. Those are traumatic.
Right.
That's traumatic for anyone.
Yeah.
Right? Because we always think the worst. That's just our general anxiety of things. And so why not have, you know, nonprofits and peer navigators and parent support, you know, personnel and youth mentors available to communities and to families who have who have been diagnosed with lupus, who have been diagnosed with, you know, high blood pressure or diabetes.
Yeah.
Because it is you're altering the way that you're living. So let's get back to the parenting element, because I love what you just said, and Malcolm is such a handsome young man.
He is.
How old is he? 2?
He's 1.
He's 1.
He'll be 2 in
But he
July.
can read, so he tricks you.
I know he's smart.
Like
So-
the mama.
Right, like his mama. Let's talk about how you are changing the narrative of having a lupus diagnosis and being a mom. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
So, if my life has just been changed around a whole lot. I was supposed to go off to the South to go to college, and I'm still taking classes at Delta, and I can't take my full courses. I can only take 2 classes at a time because I don't really care for online classes. I want to feel normal to go to school.
Right.
And people are like, why do you go to school? I'm like, I just want to feel normal. This is my normal. I'm okay with going to school. And if it takes me 10 years to graduate, then I'm okay with that.
Right.
But when Malcolm and I never thought I was going to have a baby, so it never crossed my mind. And when they told me that I couldn't have a baby, I think I was more devastated. I was like, okay, I can't have a baby. And now when I get pregnant, it's they're scaring me because they're saying, I don't know how this pregnancy is going to work. This is too high risk. And I was like, my mom and my stepdad, my supporters, they're like, you're going to have that baby. That's our baby, and whatever happens, that's our baby. So I went through a lot with Malcolm. He was 2 pounds 12 ounces. He wasn't growing inside of me. I developed preeclampsia with him, and he stayed in hospital for 2 weeks, but I was blessed, and he was breathing on his own when he came out, so I was blessed. But just being a parent now, it's so funny because I used to look at my mom and I said, she's staying in the hospital with me, why won't she go home? But I couldn't leave my baby when he was in that NICU. I couldn't leave him.
Right.
And I said, I have so much respect for my mom, and it's so humbling that she was always there for me. And I just reciprocated that with my baby. And I teach him so much about this disease. I talk about it. I let him know. And that's the problem. People do not talk about it. We're embarrassed. I've never been embarrassed for it. When I first found out, I said the whole world can know. I was never embarrassed about my disease. But I think I was more embarrassed about certain things that happened during it. I was okay with saying I have lupus, but I wasn't okay with cutting my hair. I wasn't okay with the weight gain. I wasn't okay with that. But when I had my baby, I was so nervous. Then I'm like, this is not going to work. Maybe something's going to be wrong with him. But I've been blessed that he's a healthy little boy. So I don't know. I'm blessed.
You are
very blessed.
Amen to that. And I have to respect what you just said, because as a society, we are prone to shaming.
Yes.
We are prone to bullying. We are prone to just the mere ignorance. Because I think that part of the issue is that we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it because we don't understand it. And what we don't understand tends to intimidate us or frighten us. When the reality is that we are all prone to having lupus.
Yeah. And
the statistics are pretty staggering.
Yeah. And I just know, I always tell people, show empathy, care. Not saying, I know, and it's so sad. People used to check on me when I first got diagnosed. Everybody's like, I think I have these symptoms, and I'm reaching out to you because I think I have these symptoms, and I'm hurting and all of this. But then I think it's more, let me take care of me. Because when it's, I don't have it, then Frankie, you're nothing no more. Yeah. And I just feel like we shouldn't do that. Show empathy, regardless of what. Like, even if you don't have the disease or you thought you did, I'm always willing to talk. But it's just kind of hurt sometimes. It's like, were you just using me? Like, yeah. I don't know.
To self-diagnose.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, and it's just like, okay, I'm done with you. Bye.
Right. And I think, but, one thing that I will say, just someone who works in human behavior, is that in order to have empathy and sympathy, you have to be taught that.
Yeah.
And I think that we are totally missing the mark as a community and society where we're not instilling empathy or sympathy onto our children. Like, hats off to you for showing Malcolm and educating him and talking with him and empowering him. That is what we need. And we need to create the narrative that it is okay not to be okay, and if you're not okay, this is how we're going to support you.
Yes.
Correct. And I think that we missed the mark on that.
We did. Hopefully the next generation can do better.
Yeah. And it really is up to us
yes.
to begin those conversations and normalize the fact that sometimes people are going to go through things in life, and we need to support them.
Most definitely.
We don't need to shame them. We don't
Correct.
need to, tiptoe around it, like you were saying,
one thing,
Frankie.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, tiptoeing around it, because one thing that needs to be told, lupus is genetically inherited. You cannot catch lupus. We cannot give anybody lupus, so it's not something that people say stress has made me have lupus, or no, it's already in your DNA.
Right.
It is something that you're born with. Someone in your family could have had a lupus related illness that when you were triggered to have that one symptom that took you to the doctor and they find out it's lupus, it's because somebody in your family tree had it.
So we all have the predisposition to have lupus. It is a genetic trait, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong because I'm not a scientist neither. So when a mother and a father both have the traits of the lupus genetic, predisposition, you yourself can have it.
Yeah.
So again, it's an indiscriminate disease.
Right. Right.
Same thing for mental illness, same thing for high blood pressure, same thing for diabetes. And so we do need to be cautious and careful of how we act and what we say.
Right.
That's very important.
It's just life. Life takes you many places and it sends you everywhere, but it's just life.
Yeah.
And this is our life. We have lupus. I mean, someone else has a different disease. And then, honestly, all these diseases kind of affect us the same way.
Right.
But that's why I always tell people it's life. Mm-hmm. And then when you go through real life, that's when you realize, you empathize and you understand. Some people don't go through real life, so they don't know.
Right.
Yeah, and there's different stages that I would say, or different levels, because there's no stages in lupus. We just call them stages because this is what's going on in our episodes. Our flare-ups are called flare-ups. I believe for her and for I, it was life or death. We were dying. We were pretty much checking out. But there's so many people out there that self-medicate with whatever it is that they choose to self-medicate with, and not really trying to find the answer for what's going on. Their life expectancy can be a lot lower than people who at least would like to get some answers and would like to understand why they're in so much pain, because lupus is painful. Sure. I would rather give childbirth than go through the flare-ups that I go through. It is so bad. Mm-hmm. And there's people out there who choose to self-medicate and just live for the next moment instead of living for life in general. Right. She has an amazing family that gives her warmth, support, and purpose. And there's so many of us, and I include myself, because even though I had an amazing family, I was so independent and so stubborn that I want to do things still on my own to prove to myself that I am still this mother of independence. But God humbles you and tells you need help.
Yeah.
And I think you need to get it.
And I think that goes back to being a mom and being a woman as well. Sometimes we have, as women, we are the matriarch. Yes. We are the final say. Yeah. And so I don't know if if Juanita, you went through your process as a single mom or not. But sometimes that is a difficulty as well.
I was married at the time when my first symptoms started coming around, and it affected that particular marriage, and that marriage ended. And I understand a lot of why it ended, and I think it was for the best. So during my initial diagnosis and my hospital stays and my chemotherapy, my ex-husband stepped up to the plate, and he's been just amazing, and he is my husband now, and I'm blessed to have him and blessed to have my entire family and community. But it was very difficult during that one transitional stage of being a divorcee and then a single parent, and then a union again. So a lot of stages in my life, but all very blessed to have them all.
Right, and I think that's really good to hear. And one thing that I do want to reiterate to the viewers and to individuals who have been diagnosed with lupus and those who are concerned about having a lupus diagnosis is that there is support and you're not alone. And I do want to reiterate that advocacy and asking questions is vital. It's vital.
It is.
It's vital. And creating, if you don't have those support systems, to create those support systems, because it is important.
Yeah.
It's very important.
There are so many people out there that have passed away from sheer dehydration because they can't get up to hydrate themselves, and because there's nobody there to give them that water or
Yeah.
that liquid. I mean, I've known 2 people that have passed away just from the most unnecessary deaths because of lupus, because they didn't have not one single person out there. And she's so blessed, and I am so blessed, and we're blessed to be here with you sharing our story.
So, Juanita, do you have any recommendations for parents? I know
Yeah.
that Frankie is a young parent with a 1-year-old. Do you have any advice for Frankie or upcoming parents?
I think she's nailed it. She is doing what I think by the time she was diagnosed with lupus, the resources and the dynamic had shifted versus when I was diagnosed with lupus. Because when I was diagnosed with lupus, I went from being a businesswoman and independent who had her life in order to all of a sudden not being able to get out of bed and not even being able to go to the restroom by myself. And she is educating her child versus I had no education to pass on to my children. And this is exactly why the foundation was to communicate more and not pretend that everything was fine for the sake of my children. Would have opened up their knowledge and their acceptance of what was going on versus me trying to hide it and not let them know that I was scared, not let them know that I was in pain, not let them know that I could not consider making plans for the next day because I could not, my insecurities of my body, my independence was taken away from me, that I dare not voice it out loud. So I would underplay everything that was happening to me. And I should have been more open. I should have been more transparent in telling them, you know what, there's something seriously wrong, that I cannot move. I cannot get out of bed. I need help. And if instead of letting them go to school, but I did it so that they would go to school and still be able to function, so that they wouldn't have to worry about leaving me alone, so that they wouldn't have to worry if I was able to eat while they were gone. I felt I would fail them if I just told them that the way they left me is the way they would find me again the next afternoon. I mean, lupus is so difficult to accept, and it is so hard to say what lupus is doing to you. Because you can say I have lupus, but I was still discovering. I was discovering I couldn't write my name. I was discovering I would walk in from one room to another and forget. I couldn't be the parent they needed me to be as young adults, as they're entering their adulthood, as they're entering new stages of their life, as they're entering the dating. I could not be that parent. And I felt I was failing them. And really, I was really failing myself because I wasn't being honest.
Yeah. And again, I think that this totally goes back to not having outlets and safe spaces for people to heal and accept, not having doctors available that can take that time to, number one, explain.
To prepare you.
Yeah, to prepare you. The preventative.
Yeah.
You know, what if we had groups and support systems available to prepare people for this transition, because it is difficult. And again, especially with when you are a parent with young teenagers and children who may not understand.
There is a support group in Sacramento. It's called a Sacramento Lupus Support Group, but just like I and her and I will we are diagnosed, we are patients, but we find it sometimes very difficult to talk about it with other people, and we need to make that time. Sometimes resources, even if limited, they are out there, but it does no good to anybody if somebody does not reach out and communicate with them.
Yeah. And I also feel like with resources have to have the monetary ability to function and thrive, to have, operation costs.
Yeah. Hard cost.
Right? Are the cost to have those networks and that support. But people from Stockton should not have to drive to Sacramento.
They should not.
In order to access a opportunity to process and heal.
Well,
we're working on it.
Yeah.
To bring it to Stockton.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Hopefully by the end of June, the Stockton Lupus Support Group will start being active, and we're just in the working stages right now to see how we can bring lupus awareness and support here to this region, because we are very passionate about, we are so willing, if we have to go to your house to speak to you about what you're going through to make it comfortable for you, we're willing to do that. A lot of it's kind of like in-home support services without the darkness of it, of the hospice type situation. We would just prefer for you to know, if you can't come to the meeting, let's set up a time that hopefully we can get out there to you. Very one-on-one.
Because it feels good to talk and cry
Mm-hmm.
and release that. We go through a lot, and that's why I've been blessed just with my family at home. My mom, she's been there from the start, so she knows when I'm not feeling well, and that's why when I did get pregnant, they knew to take on. They knew that my family registered in their head that this is our baby too. We have to help her.
Yeah.
So if I'm not feeling well, they know, okay, we have to take Malcolm, let her rest. So I've been blessed with that.
Right on.
And there's one thing about her that is important for everybody, and I think anybody with lupus should and needs to be, the glass is half full, not dwell on the glass is half empty momentum, because we cannot allow this disease, because if you give it an inch, it will take yards. We cannot allow it to affect us mentally by being negative. We have to stay positive. We have to say we're blessed, because there's so many people out there that will not take another breath because of this disease. And anytime we are able to breathe one more breath, we are so blessed to be able, because tomorrow is promised to no one, and any day above ground is a good day.
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the walk really quick.
Well, Team Frankie Lupus Awareness Color Walk is June 8th, 2019 at Victory Park on Pershing. I don't know.
Pershing Avenue?
Yeah, Pershing Avenue. I don't know the exact address.
1001.
Victory Park. Pershing, I don't know either.
10 to 2 p.m., 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's $2 to come in. We're excited. I'm excited.
It'll be an amazing color walk, and we'll be selling food for $5 and color for $5, and it all goes to the Alpha Lupus Foundation, and it's to help people like you guys, like everybody here.
So June 8th at 10 o'clock at Victory Park from 10 to 2. The entry fee is $2. It will be a lot of color, a lot of events, activities for the kids,
Raffles,
raffle prizes,
giveaways.
And what was that one?
Giveaway prizes.
Oh, giveaway prizes,
and
raffles.
Just whoever registers, whoever pays those $2 will put their name in there. And we're going to have some courtesy gifts. But then there's another raffle for $5 that you will be qualified to be able to enter for these other gifts. So we are very excited to give back to the community. We have wonderful sponsors as well that are just giving to Team Frankie Color Walk.
Excellent. Thank you guys for coming out today and talking
Thank you
about
for having us.
lupus. Very excited to participate in the color walk. We will be there. The Voice of Stockton will be there, and then my private practice, my KWTTS, will be in the building, providing information about what we do at my private practice. So thank you both for coming.
Thank you for having us.
hopefully to see you all soon. And then to the viewers, just to remind you that the Voice of Stockton is also a nonprofit, and we do appreciate sponsorships to continue to provide these platforms to bring education and awareness to the community. Catch us on the Voice of San Joaquin on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you have a donation, please give us a call at the station and provide one. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next week with another Live with Kimberly show. Thank you all. Happy belated Mother's Day, and we will see you next Monday. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.